The national conversation around sexual assault, sexual harassment has mostly centered around celebrities, some of whom I just named up at the top. But sexual harassment in the workplace is harrowingly common. And actually, this is something the EEOC looked into in a recent report, putting some numbers to this. According to the EEOC, between 25% and 85% of women report having experienced sexual harassment in the workplace. But this is a huge range. Why don't we have a better handle on what that figure looks like?
Well, the national surveys actually, just slight correction, is 25% to 60%.
Okay.
Although there are some studies that
take it
up. But even 25% to 60% is a huge range. One of the things we tried to figure out is what was in that range, and it's very interesting. When an employer, an academic sends out a survey to women and says, have you ever experienced sexual harassment over the course of your career? 25% of women, 1 out of 4, say yes. But those surveys don't define sexual harassment. They just say, have you experienced sexual harassment? The better surveys send out a list of behaviors. Have you, over the course of your career, ever experienced any of these behaviors? And the behaviors in these surveys that have to do with sexual advances or sexual attention, somebody touching you inappropriately, someone asking you for dates continuously. When women get that survey, 40% of women say they have experienced those unwelcome behaviors. So right there, you see that women are experiencing behaviors that they don't call sexual harassment. Now, the one that's most accurate are the surveys that have not only those behaviors, but other unwelcome behaviors that are simply degrading to women, right? Use of pornography, or simply that women don't belong in the workplace. That gives you 60% figure, over 1 out of 2. So when you combine what the researchers call the come-ons and the put-downs, 60% of women experience sex-based harassment. That is not okay in our country.
I mean, I would agree, full stop, but we can't leave it there. We have to talk more about kind of where we go with this information. One of the kind of pieces of this that also contributes, in my opinion, but also in the opinion of the EEOC, to these kind of wide ranges, but also what are perhaps undercounting of what actually happens, is that a lot of women don't come forward. And that's because they're afraid of retaliation. Your report also looked at that, and the rates of retaliation following up a report of sexual harassment are staggeringly high.
Yes. I think it wasn't that much of a surprise to me and my colleague, then Commissioner Victoria Lipnick, and we did this together, that so many people don't file legal claims. Although even there, the fact that only 15% ever walk through our doors at the EEOC with a complaint. Even more sobering is that up to 70% of people never even complain internally, not to a manager, not to a union, not to HR. They are silenced, and they're silenced because of fear of retaliation, either professionally or socially, fear of not being believed, nothing happening. And that fear, unfortunately, is well justified, because the surveys show that people who do report often get retaliated against. So, hey, you're a reasonable woman and you see what happened to some other woman who reported, and it wasn't a good scene because she got retaliated against. You're not going to step forward when something happens to you.
Now, it's interesting because there's been sort of a groundswell of research, of conversation around this set of issues in the wake of particularly the Harvey Weinstein allegations. And one of the observations that some experts have made in this conversation is that when people do come forward, and particularly women, it's usually when others are also coming forward. There's sort of the tidal wave is not accidental. You see someone else come forward, you feel more comfortable. But does that sort of have two sides of the coin? You mentioned that how these claims get handled has a huge effect on whether other people are going to come forward.
Yes, people have been asking me recently, do I feel this is a tipping point? And I say we need 2 tipping points. Like, the first tipping point is breaking the silence. is the coming forward. And I think we are beginning to see that because there is some sense of strength or safety in numbers. But the second tipping point has to be action. What are we going to do about this? And the key factor there is, what are employers now doing when some women are feeling strong enough, or let's be clear, angry enough to come forward? Because how employers react, how they respond in this moment, that's going to be the key to whether they can change the workplace culture in their organization.